What's up, house groups? This week we finished up our series Ancient Paths by talking about one that is certainly unfamiliar and probably even more uncomfortable for those of us who live in the Western world: fasting. I think we struggle with it not just in execution but in concept, because we live in a world of plenty. Even those of us who don't have much in this society have infinitely more plenty than most of the human beings who've ever lived, and most of them on the planet today. And so the idea of want and lack and emptiness is just not part of the way we see the world, and we struggle to wrap our minds around intentionally putting ourselves in that space. But here's the thing. For thousands of years, God's people have emptied themselves of food because they discovered things in the emptiness, in the hunger, in the lack that cannot be discovered along any other path. And most importantly, they discovered that we desperately need God and that the things of this world will never truly satisfy us. Like, physical hunger has a way of pointing us toward God and reminding us of our spiritual hunger, that all the things of our world, all the plenty, tends to dull and numb a little. Never fill, never satiate, but just paper over enough that we forget that there's this spiritual hunger inside us, and we don't notice our longing for God is the hunger underneath all of our other hungers. And so tonight, I want to be brief, but I just want to get real pragmatic about fasting, because I think there's value in this ancient path, even if it's difficult. So here's the nuts and bolts of it. First and foremost, fasting isn't about getting some of God's attention. It's about God getting all of your attention. Again, in the Bible, God's people are consistently invited into fasting and prayer as a way of connecting their hearts more deeply to God's heart and learning to rely on His strength, His power, and His fullness in the places where they're weak and insufficient. And so fasting is something that we do not to earn God's favor or His attention, but to focus our minds on Him, because when you're starving, your mind gets focused. Also, fasting is a reward, not a requirement. Bear with me on that one. Fasting is never something God demands of us so that we can be good with Him. Instead, it's something He invites us into so we can intentionally enter into a space where we get a bigger, better vision of who He is, who He made us to be, and how He's at work in our world. And He actually promises us there are blessings for us in the experience. In Matthew 6:16-18, Jesus says, when you fast, not if you fast, when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they're fasting. Truly, I tell you, they've received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face so that it will not be obvious to others that you're fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. All right, so fasting, never a requirement, but Jesus promises it does come with a reward. Also, fasting is less about what we're abstaining from than what we're abstaining for. It's easy and natural to think about what we're giving up when we fast, because food is a major part of our lives, and it's not easy to step away from it for a day or a week or more. Which means our default response to fasting is to be really focused on what we're fasting from. But the point of it isn't just skipping food or just self-denial or just developing grit through suffering. That's not it at all. The point is that we're fasting for a breakthrough, for revival, for deeper connection with the heart of God. And so when we fast, we got to think about what we're fasting for, not just what we're fasting from. And that said, fasting doesn't always work the way we'd like it to. Things don't automatically happen just because we went hungry. God isn't like a vending machine where if we put in 3 days of hunger, we get out whatever we prayed for, which is super frustrating. At least it has been in my life, because when we're going through a struggle, we want to see an immediate payoff. But we got to remember that the benefits of leaning into Jesus and learning to rely on Jesus are bigger in the long term than they're ever going to be in the short term. And so ultimately, the goal of fasting isn't pain or suffering or being hungry. It's allowing the hunger we feel to remind us repeatedly and more frequently than we'd be reminded when we're not fasting that we have an emptiness that can only be filled with Jesus. And that our real and desperate hunger is for Him, because He is the bread of life that sustains our souls. As He says in John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. And so I want to challenge all of you this week to give it a try, even if it's just one day or just one meal. Give it a shot. And real quick, here's how. Number one, set an objective. Decide what you're going to pray for and pray about, and ask God to line your heart up for while you're fasting. Number two, make a plan. Decide how long you're going to go and what it's going to look like. Number three, ask God to prepare your mind, your body, and your heart for the fast, because fasting is brutally hard on all of them. And then number four, try it. And as far as expectations are concerned, like, don't expect too much of yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you fail or don't get to the point that you wanted to get to. And also, try to release as many spiritual expectations as you can beforehand about how God's going to move. Again, like, fasting is not like a spiritual deposit into your God account that you can just withdraw from immediately to get blessings whenever you want. It doesn't always work quickly, but do walk into fasting expecting God to move. He moves in his own way, in his own timing, but we can fully expect he will do something in and through us in the process. And also, just physically expect to feel tired and crummy and hangry, because that's real, but it's worth it. Fasting is an ancient path that's brought life and beauty to those who went before us. And I think it's one worth rediscovering for any of us who want to connect more deeply with God and grow our understanding of who he is and how desperately we need him.